Well, today we have here with us, we have Dr. Gabe Sanders. He's here. He's an assistant professor in the School of Human Services at the University of Cincinnati. Dr. Gabe Sanders his research focuses on sports science and human performance, wearable technology, daily workloads, and fatigue in athletes. He's also the co-founder of a podcast platform called podcastscholars.com. And this is a place where researchers upload and talk about their scientific research. And so, Dr. Gabe, though, we cannot forget to say that Dr. Gabe Sanders has been with us, Vicki Doe Fitness, our team, for 10 years. It's probably been more than that, but 10
Yeah.
years, right? And he's our main freelance contributing writer for our blog. He also helped design some of the exercise training routines and things that we have on our Vicki Doe Fitness Health Fitness Training coaching app. And so we are truly grateful for his dedication in helping us to deliver evidence-based science and health education to our health and wellness programs that we have on our platform, our Vicki Doe Fitness Academy and our VickiDoeFitness.com. And today, Dr. Gabe is with us. He's joining us to talk about the role of strength training and muscle health and how these factors play an important role in combating chronic diseases and achieving optimal health. So let's get ready for an insightful conversation and a lot of fun because we just love Dr. Gabe here, don't we, Dee?
We do. We do. Welcome back.
Welcome
Yeah,
back.
thank you for having me.
All right. And so, listen, we know you've been doing all kinds of things, all kinds of good things, and you're now at the University of Cincinnati. And so, congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And so, tell us some of the exciting things that you're doing. You could talk about some of the latest research and
Yep.
all that kind of stuff. Tell us.
Yeah, absolutely. So really making the transition to the University of Cincinnati, my research hasn't changed or anything, but what we're really it's kind of looking at different sports right now. I have collaborations going on. We're looking at volleyball athletes. We're looking at other collaborations. We're looking at UFC athletes and weight cut data. We're looking at basketball athletes and even football as well. So and we kind of keep that all separate because the way that everything's being measured is different. But one thing that we're looking at is how can we enhance performance, but also identify indicators that can lead to excessive fatigue. So it's really just a matter of getting the research design within the sports season set up. So that way we can analyze these large, huge data sets. And like, what's interesting and what I want to get into a little bit more as, this AI is becoming really prevalent and everything, and it can be a really valuable tool, is once you kind of analyze the data, set it in place, you can create processes that can help better identify if like problematic data points or problematic workloads based on some of the analysis, some of the exterior components that you look at, such as like VO2, such as heart rate, some of these other factors that can be involved, or stress. Like one of the things that I'm also interested in, I could talk about this forever, but like literally also looking at like the subjective component to this. How do you feel? What is your school stress, peer stress, personal stress? And then can we identify some problematic workloads that either trigger those self-reported measures, or is it the other way? Do some of those self-reported measures result in problematic workloads or higher stress workloads? So it's probably an ongoing question that we'll never really know the answer to, but that's really where my research is focused on at the moment.
Okay. So, Dee, do you have
So,
something?
Yeah, so Dr. Gabe, when you started out, it started me thinking about, metrics and measuring and all of that. So one of the things that you said was about trying to find more indicators for fatigue. So then I'm like, especially since we're talking about strength training today, are we talking about fatigue in terms of muscle fatigue or just I'm tired fatigue? And what is that? And what does this look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it could be just as simple as I'm feeling fatigued. And then is what happens is every day we're collecting data on these athletes. And a lot of people do this with a wrist-worn heart rate monitor or activity tracker. So basically, we can then look at what we really do to try to look at fatigue is a way to measure an athlete or an individual without them knowing that we're trying to gauge their fatigue. So in athletics, one of the things that we do is we do this with jump performance, like vertical jump measures, because uh, a counter movement jump is a non-fatiguing assessment. So it's something that we can do with athletes just any day, every day, actually. And it won't fatigue them. It won't make them not perform well. But those indicators that we can get with a counter movement jump or a vertical jump can let us know if they're fatigued, just because that's more of a neuromuscular type of assessment. And if their power, the amount of force that they can produce, and the way that they land, if that's off, and that then correlates or corresponds to certain changes in their workloads, or maybe even their subjective, how they're feeling, what type of stress they're under, then that gives us an objective way to look at the data. So that way, the athletes don't have to know that we're looking at their fatigue, because one of the things you want to try to avoid is somebody knowing that you're trying to look at their fatigue, because they'll fake it. Or, as an athlete, they just want to compete, they want to be on the field. So you're really trying, and if you can disguise that, it can really help improve their overall health and well-being, because at the end of the day, that's what you're trying to do, whether it's increase performance, reduce injuries, or just help them perform optimally. It's all to keep them, injury free,
Yeah.
feeling good, feeling optimal.
And we know that because when I was back teaching dance, I used to tell the dancers, because they would come in early in the morning. I had an early class at about 8 o'clock, and the dance that I taught was very vigorous and all that. First of all, they wouldn't eat. They're not
Oh
eating.
yeah, oh yeah,
You know how dancers can do. They're not eating. They would have practiced late hours the night before, and then they come in trying to dance, And I used to say, listen, no wonder you can't dance. First of all, you haven't eaten. That's number
yeah,
one. And number two, you're fatigued. So
yeah,
we probably need not to be dancing like this morning, because then I'm going to contribute to your injury that you might have later
yeah.
on. They'll be like, what are you talking about, Dr. Doe? I said, listen, I'm telling you, if you are fatigued, you put yourself at risk for injury. So it's nice that you are doing that kind of cutting edge research. What have you seen so far with the
Yeah.
whole fatigue thing and athletes and all that performance? What are some of the outcomes and some of the things that you've seen that's significant?
Yeah, so what's significant is, in order to kind of ward off or prevent excessive fatigue, one of the best ways that we've found is to, like you said, you got to manage your weight. Uh, Having excessive weight loss further contributes to excessive fatigue, so we've found it even on both ends of the spectrum, whether excessive weight gain or excessive weight loss. And that's all, caloric, it's all based on caloric intake, right? Like, you have to be able to, and so I have a lot of thoughts on that, but you have to monitor weight, and that's in a positive way. Like, a lot of times with certain sports, and primarily female sports, they don't want to have their athletes step on a scale, and because of some of the body issue or body image issues, and disordered eating and stuff like that, which that all has merit too. But when you're talking about performance, monitoring weight is a very valuable way to make sure that they're eating, because like you said, it's very prevalent that they just don't eat, or I've seen a lot of things with athletes, men and women, to be honest with you. But that's important. So the weight status part, helping them to keep a consistent weight, also preseason VO2 max. So that's just an indicator of aerobic capacity, like how much air you can take in and deliver to working tissue. So the point of that is people who avoid excessive fatigue and appear to avoid injuries the best are those who are in the best shape, which that's probably not a big surprise, but that often gets overlooked in the off season. So the way a lot of athletics look, or college athletics, or even high school, is that you have your off season, or you leave campus, you come back for your preseason, and you're out of shape. So you have to go through weeks of high intensity work. You know, when you come back and practice for the first time in college, it's hard, and I don't care what sport it is, they're working you, and that opens you up to injury. But anyways, the athletes who are in the best shape, especially coming into the season, do the best. And between the VO2, the aerobic capacity, and some of the weight management components, those are two of the best ways to stay healthy and perform optimally throughout a full season.
All
I
right.
remember when I used to do running, I don't do it anymore, but when I was into running and a lot more long distance running, not a marathon, but I did, I was with a lot of people who did marathons, and that's a whole big thing with that. They have, when you start out getting ready to do the training, which is why I never could do it because I just didn't have the time, there's a whole eating process from the time that you start training up until that last day, just the night before the race. And I know when I used to do the 10Ks, there was a whole program for us to eat, about how you would eat up until the night before whatever that you raced. But one other comment that you made was that, back in the days when, I'll just pull an example, Michael Phelps was training, and they would talk about, it was always amazing to me because I like to swim. Those swimmers have to eat a lot. He was eating like 3,000 or 4,000 calories a day just for his endurance, which, is a lot. But it's not like eating pies and cakes. It's it's
But
food that's going to produce some energy.
Right. And so that's why it's important when we talk, when it comes to just regular people or athletes, we cannot, because that's my soapbox, talking about these anti-obesity medications and this and that. I mean, okay, that's great to jumpstart, but you cannot not eat what you're supposed to do, healthy eating, your proteins, all of those things that you supposed to do, because we're feeding our body, and our exercise is important too, because we're made to move. So anything that you do, whether it's just to live a healthy life, whether it's to be the top performance athlete, we still get back to what you're doing as far as your exercise and how you eat. And so that's why we're so glad that you're here, so that we can talk about, bringing that home to muscle health. And so, listen, I decided that this year, would be, now some of it is because I've been listening to the whole anti-obesity, the semaglutide and all that kind of stuff, and how one of the major things of major weight loss, and we know that just regular weight loss, that's why we always focus in as far as exercise when someone's losing weight, is to make sure you do strength training to keep that muscle health and muscle mass. And so this year we're going to focus, and you're going to be writing a lot of articles and blogs on that, the importance of doing strength training to keep our muscle health, to keep that up, and to combat these metabolic diseases. And so what's your view? Let's talk about it, the scientific view, your view, evidence-based, most especially since we are exercise physiologists, the important reason as to why muscle health is so important and crucial for maintaining our health, most especially as we age.
Yeah, I mean, it's critical. And that's the thing, I worked in a like medically based fitness center, worked with cardiac rehab patients, bariatric patients, pulmonary rehab patients, like you name it. And almost, I'd say 100% of them, after they did their exercise and their strength training for, any amount of time, 2 weeks, a month, they just always would say to me, I wish I would have done this my whole life. So essentially, just physiologically, what that does, I mean, your muscles, number one, they help hold your bone structure up. And number two, they also protect your organs. I mean, your vital organs all within, your ribs protect your chest cavity. But other than that, from your abdominal region, your muscles protect everything, keep everything in place. But, aside from that, your muscles down on like a cellular level, there's a lot of things going on there, and that also improves the way that your body uses nutrients. Like we talked about nutrition, it improves the way your body delivers oxygen. All of that is done on a very muscular and cardiovascular level. Your heart is a muscle. So, you doing the strength training is one of the most important components for anybody, male, female, it doesn't, kids, adults, you name it. And part of that is also, it does enhance your bone mineral density, which is very important. It increases the strength of your ligaments and tendons. And as we age, is what happens is your ligaments and tendons become more lax. Now, the declines will happen no matter what, but strength training limits the rate at which those are going to decline, right? Like, I mean, as you age, everything, for lack of a better way of saying it, it falls apart. But how do you slow that fall apart? You can really minimize it through exercise and strength training. Really, and in fact, almost keep it negligent and non-existent. And I think a lot of the research shows that you can really keep it. You can actually increase power, muscular power, and strength to a certain extent up until like the 7th decade of life or something like that. I think a lot of the research points to that 7th decade being where a lot of the inevitable changes will happen. But when you think of that, like if you're 40 or you're 50 or you're 30 or 60, you can really, and even here's the thing, even when you're 70 and 80, 90, I've seen a lot of 90-year-olds who do really well because they're strength training, they're exercising. And so really that muscular health piece in the strength training, it really all revolves around keeping your body working optimally. And it does that even on the cellular level.
Yeah. So you have anything else to say, Dee?
When they talk about the new term is super agers, and the super agers are the ones that are like in their 80s and 90s that are still, maybe they'll do like a 5K or doing these kinds of things. And as you said, those are the ones that have continued to keep their strength training, all of that. They just don't go from being slugs at 70 and then super agers at 90. So, and I think it's important too, because 80 is the new 40 or whatever. People, we're keeping people alive longer, and people being alive longer are more active as they live longer. So I think it's important to get that information out. But the other question that I have, since we're talking about that, is let's talk about women, for example, because I know that there's sometimes a hesitancy or reticence for women to do all this, because I'm just going to gain more, muscle and bulk. I'm sure you've heard that.
Yeah.
But can you just comment on that and how that's not necessarily true? And actually,
Yeah.
almost kind of impossible, right?
It's impossible.
What I understand.
Yeah, so the women you might see on, looking really, I mean, I hate to say it, and someone may disagree, but they're on performance enhancing drugs that are really bulked up. I mean, there's no so I'm approaching 40 years old, and it is darn near impossible for me to put on muscle mass in a significant way at my age. So even when I was in my 20s, I played college football. It was hard. Now, some people can gain mass a little bit easier than others. That's all genetics and whatnot. But for women, the testosterone difference between men and women, that's the difference. That is the difference in the amount of muscle you're going to gain from a mass standpoint. Now, women, that you can still lift weights, and you can lift heavy weights, and you will get more toned muscles, stronger. That's all very positive. But to get the bulk and the size, I mean, you have to be on performance enhancing drugs, like not just like ones you get at GNC, not just ones you get at Vitamin Shop or on, like, we're talking like the stuff that is, illegal, so to speak. And the volume of that drug is also significant. So there's a difference between taking, hormones to optimize your health and hormones to bulk up, get big in that regard. But as far as in the context of women and what you were asking me, it is girls at a young age should be doing exercise, push-ups, pull-ups, strength training of any kind. It is so valuable for girls, and it's valuable for everybody, but especially girls, because what happens too, there's several things that girls have, wider hip structures. So they're automatically, their hips and then the way that their legs go in make them more susceptible to injuries, which is why, ACL injury rates and everything are so much higher in young female athletes. But by doing, and you combine that, it's even still very prevalent today in high school. Girls will be told, or even in college, I could go on forever about this. They're told by their coaches, not their strength coaches, but by some of their coaches who may be more old school, so to speak, that wasn't part of the culture. You don't need to do strength training or whatever. It can slow you down. Those are things I've heard just as recent as last year. So the opposite is the most, I'm trying to, what I want to say, that notion couldn't be more wrong, because like we said, strength training, it increases muscle tension, or muscle strength and tone, but also it impacts ligaments and tendons. So the more that you weight train, the stronger and tighter those ligaments and tendons are going to become, which helps ward off injury. And here's where it becomes even more vital for women, is the more strength and resistance training you can do at a young age, the better your bone mineral density, the more likely you are from not having osteoporosis as you age. And again, you that starts at a very young age, and it's healthy. At the end of the day, whenever I hear that about young girls or women, and my mom is one of those. I've been trying to get her to lift weights for can't tell you how long. It's just healthy. It's good for you. It helps strengthen your muscles, and that can also lead to improving whatever cardio you're doing. It can help improve your cardio as well, just because it does enhance the muscle rigidity and the actual physiological benefits that come with strength training. So
Fallacy
it's
of
vital.
fact. Fallacy or fact. It burns fat.
Yes. So that's it. That's an interesting, it's hard to say one or the other. It's beneficial for burning fat. Is weight training, just doing it, is that going to be your end all be all? No, I think you have to do both in terms of fat burning and diet. I mean, but having more, here's where that comes into play. More muscle mass will expend more calories than fat. So a pound of muscle requires more calories to maintain than a pound of fat. Does that make sense? So like that's where that notion kind of comes into play, or that concept.